Poetry has been at the center of what I do, always. Music is an extension of it. Music, you could say, is the poetry of sound. And writing songs involves poetry in sounds, and poetry as poetry itself. That's why I think it's so powerful.
Pedro Aznar is one of Latin America's great musicians, and this year he's back on the road.
I wanted to celebrate 35 years of solo career. I released my first album in 1982. I've recorded 18 albums during this period. I felt it was like a moment of maturity for myself and for my music, and also for my relationship with the audiences.
Aznar is part of the legendary Argentine rock scene called rock nacional. He played with North American jazz greats, but has also had a long solo career, and now he is touring with a show that looks back at that career. Yet while the concerts he is playing are retrospectives of his work, he starts with a song by the Beatles, which he included in his first album released in 1982.
Because was a song that surprised me a lot. It was like, it was this perfect fusion of classical music with rock, with pop music, and the vocals were just, it sounded like angels singing or something. And I remember listening to it. I was 10 years old when that song was released, and to me it was like a revelation. It was something that changed the whole game of music.
His concert then moves through decades of work, right up to his most recent songs. Aznar is the son of a tango violinist, and he grew up listening to Argentine folk music as well as tango. As a youngster, he was captivated by the very possibility of listening to music at home.
For me, recorded music had this magical element, the fact that you could listen to music without the musicians being present. Now we're used to, or younger generations are particularly used to having thousands and thousands of songs available all the time. But at the same time, it's almost too much information. And back in the days when I was a little kid, when somebody lends you an album, you went through it many times in order to discover it. Maybe that was a good thing, but at the same time, having all music at your disposal at all time is unbeatable. That is amazing, and there's no discussion.
Aznar began playing professionally at the age of 14. By the age of 18, he was invited to join a new band called CgTN, set up by the singer Charlie Garcia.
At first, people didn't quite understand what was the group's idea, or our aesthetic. They couldn't really grasp it, and also critics were really harsh. But after about a year and a half, everything changed, and people seemed to catch on the idea, and it was like wildfire.
CgTN lasted for 4 years. Despite the success, Aznar then chose to move to the United States to continue studying music.
I wanted to see how the popular music in the United States was made, and try to find the recipe to some of the things that were my favorite musicians and my favorite music.
Aznar caught the eye of Pat Metheny, a legendary jazz musician.
Playing with them every night for about 10 years and traveling the world with them and recording with them was a major experience for me. I couldn't have had a better school. To me, they define what excellence in music is, and changed my way of understanding music in a very profound way.
Back home in Argentina, Aznar is revered as one of the key figures in rock nacional, or Argentine rock. It was a scene with frontmen like Charly Garcia, Luis Spinetta, Gustavo Cerati, but also the minds of people like Pedro Aznar. This was a music that asked brave questions in the late 1970s and early 1980s.
It's been music that's been courageous in times of political oppression, that's been smart, that's been adventurous, that meant not only music that was fun to listen to, but it was also music that piqued your senses and your intellect, and that planted new seeds in your brain. In the same way as rock music in the 60s in the United States and in Europe was a vehicle for expression of youth. People who wanted a change. It was very important in Latin America as well, because we were living very oppressive years in terms of politics, and many countries in Latin America were oppressed by dictatorships, and rock music in our countries meant a means of liberating at least our minds. And when your mind is free, it's more difficult to oppress you in any way.
To this day, rock argentino is still heard on the radio both in Argentina and across South America, and it continues to inspire new musicians and new audiences.
We've had rock music, local rock music, for 50 years, and if you think that the United States or England have had rock music for 60 years, it's not that different. It's a long tradition for us as well. And I think new generations appreciate that, and they, judging from the comments I get from kids who are starting playing music, they come to thank me, and through me to all of the other musicians from the first era of rock music in Argentina, because they realize that what we did was change the game of culture and of music in general in our country, and that allowed the following generations to continue on that tradition and make their contribution as well. So they feel part of a beautiful machine that's changing culture year after year.